Okay, so I call this August 22nd, virtual regular public meeting of the Highland Park Board of Education to order. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the Highland Park Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting, setting forth the time, date, and location to be submitted for publication to the Home News Tribune and Star Ledger, and posted on the board's website at least 48 hours in advance of this meeting. Members of the public who wish to address the board will be given the opportunity to do so before the board adjourns for the evening. Linda, do you want to do the roll call?
Of course. Ms. Casaldon,
Here.
Ms. Imeresti,
Here.
Ms. Coleman, Ms. Gowan,
Here.
Mr. Krieger,
Here.
Ms. McFadden DiNicola, Ms. Prus,
Here.
Mr. Rizlevich, Mr. Woodward.
Okay, we are going to recess to executive session. It resolved pursuant to the Sunshine Act, NJSA 10:4-12 and 13. The Highland Park Board of Education will now meet in a closed session to discuss matters related to HIB and the EVVRS comparison report. These exemptions are permitted to be discussed in closed session in accordance with NJSA 10:4-13. Information regarding the board's closed session discussion will be disclosed to the public as soon as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. We have a motion to recess to executive session.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, we're
First,
recording.
second, no.
And I will, the waiting room has been disabled, so all are welcome to join. We are back.
Okay. I mean, no one's in the waiting room. Okay, let's get going. We are reconvening to regular session. Do I have to make a motion to reconvene, right? Motion to reconvene to regular session? Have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of reconvening?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag
of the United States of America and to
and
the
to the
republic
republic for which it stands, one
one
nation,
Nation,
under God,
indivisible, with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice for all.
Okay, moving on through the agenda. There were no communications to report this month. We do have the approval of minutes for the virtual public meeting on August 1st. We go ahead and do those now, I'm thinking, right? So make a motion to approve the minutes of August 1st virtual public regular meeting. Second?
Second.
Okay. We do a roll call on this one, Linda?
Ms. Casaldon,
Yes.
Ms. Imeresti,
Yes.
Ms. Gowan,
Yes.
Mr. Krieger,
Yes.
Ms. Prus,
Yes.
Mr. Rizlevich,
Yes.
Okay, and then we move to the superintendent's report. Dr. Nicosia. you're
Thank
up.
you. Yes, I'm excited to present tonight. Some great stuff to look forward to in the 2022-2023 school year. Okay. All right, thumbs up. We're good.
Mhm.
So a couple of topics that I want to talk about tonight include some updates to the summer facilities projects that I know I talked about in the spring, but I just wanted to give everybody an update on the goings on of our projects in preparation for our upcoming school year. Every 6 months, the district has to update the safe opening plan for COVID-19 in response to the federal funding for ESSER. So I'll go over that. In addition, some health and wellness supports that I'm looking forward to for the upcoming school year, and just a review of the strategic plan goals. So some updates on our summer facilities projects. We are in the home stretch of our new track and field and sports complex. It looks absolutely gorgeous if you have seen it or happen to go in the loop of the middle school recently. It looks incredible. I am very, very excited. We were supposed to have a final walkthrough last week. It was delayed. Linda, I'm not sure if they put an ETA on our radar.
I haven't heard.
Yeah, okay. So I know the lights were working, they were testing it out. We got training on the app to control, dim the lights and all of that. We're really in the 21st century here with our sports complex. So we're just waiting on, I know they were waiting, I think on the surfacing is complete of the track part. Last time I checked, they were just striping the lines, and then our final walkthroughs. And then we'll be complete. So we're hoping that I believe our first football game is September 2nd, I believe, that Friday night. So I'm hoping that we'll be ready to go and be able to sort of unveil it at our first home football game. And I think Mark during his finance and facilities report will just give a couple of updates on the track and field as well, that project. All 4 schools parking lots during this week will be, the cracks will be fixed and repainted. So I know, for example, on Wednesday, Bartles parking lot is closed. So we park somewhere and we'll walk into the building. But they'll be fixing all the cracks and repainting the lines coming up. The high school gym floor has been completely resanded and refinished with the new logo and lines. So I wanted to share a picture of what it looks like. It looks absolutely stunning as well. So I think the high school students are going to be excited to go back to their beautiful new gym floor. We're currently in the process of replacing the Bartle section of bleachers in the gym. So that's going to start, they're going to start removing the set now in early, end of August, early September. So, but Jen said it wouldn't cause a disruption in her building for that removal and for the placement of the new set of the bleachers. The Bartle gym and auditorium floors have also been refinished. Same thing with the Irving gym floor / multi-purpose room. The high school is officially outfitted with projectors in every classroom, every instructional space. So we're very excited for that. We had the last of, I believe it was 12 that were installed this summer between Mike O'Donnell's crew and the tech crew. They're installed and ready to go for the teachers. Sort of on a side note, we had some Promethean boards, our first round of Promethean boards that were delivered and installed. So they're selected staff in both, I think 8 in Bartle and 8 in Irving have been selected to receive the first round of those Promethean boards. We're just waiting for the delivery of all the rest, I believe up to 50 through the ESSER 3 funding that we received. So hopefully by winter, all of Irving and Bartle will be completely outfitted with essentially smart TVs, but many people can touch them at the same time, but really nice interactive Promethean boards for those students. The middle school has already been outfitted through their title funding with Promethean and smart boards. So hopefully by the winter, the entire district will be completely all classrooms in the 21st century. So we're very excited about that. Some new flooring was installed in the high school complex. So as you make your way up to the science wing from where the main office is, you'll see some fresh new carpet tiles that look absolutely beautiful. The main entrance vestibule has also been outfitted with a surface that's pretty much indestructible, which is great. And the guidance suite or the school counseling suite of offices at the high school has also been refinished and looks beautiful as well. You can actually see in the Bartle auditorium now, we have lots of lights, so it's all illuminated. It looks absolutely beautiful. So they've been repaired and replaced, and the playground fence at Bartle has been repaired as well. We do have a couple of projects that are delayed, unfortunately. So our Bartle and Irving playgrounds, like I said, I believe in the spring, those aren't going to start until the fall due to supply chain issues. We've been guaranteed the price of the supplies. It's just been trying to get the supplies that's been a problem. Irving's project will go quicker. Linda, refresh my memory. I think they said they were going to start demo on a weekend, I believe, or at night.
Yes, they wanted to. I think they said it would take 4 or 5 days, and so they're hoping to be able to span it over a weekend to minimize the disruption during the school day. It has to be done in conjunction with the delivery of the equipment, and of course, we don't know when that's going to happen. So we are hoping, keeping our fingers crossed, that it can be done perhaps in conjunction with days that we're off anyway, like the teacher convention long weekend, something like that. But we just don't know.
The high school roof and Irving roof repairs are on hold until next summer. Mike O'Donnell reports, one moment please, the following. He said that there was an increase in the increase of cost of the materials and a long delay in getting them. So that would like lead us into the winter, which wouldn't really be a good time to do roof work. So he recommended that we hold off until next summer. Maybe the price of the materials will go down a bit. We can kind of patch loosely what needs repair. And then hopefully the cost will go down and we'll be able to do those repairs next summer. And then the high school chiller should be arriving in February 2023. Again, supply chain issues, and then hopefully we can get that installed at the high school. Lastly, for facilities, each year we do building walkthroughs. So starting actually tomorrow's the high school. So I walk through the buildings with Mike O'Donnell and the building administration, and we go through and we inspect every inch of classroom space, of building space, to make sure that it's prepared and ready to go for the students to come back in. And then we make a punch list if we see things that might either be unsafe or just needing a fresh look or a fresh update. We will make sure that everything is installed so that it's clean and it's functioning, ready for the students to come back. Next topic, I'd like to discuss our safe opening plan and updates, which has been a little bit of a whirlwind this summer. So I had one plan reviewed with the leadership team and central leadership team, and then the CDC pushed out new guidelines as of August 11th. So we adjusted our guidelines according to the new CDC updates. Like I said in the beginning of my presentation, it's required to update the plan every 6 months. We'll post it on our website and share it with the county superintendent's office. We still have a strong commitment to safety and a commitment to keeping schools open. We're shifting our safe opening plan to an emphasis on symptomatic individuals as per the CDC's guidelines. So a couple of the updates that I wanted to share. I know we talked about this in the spring, but we are fully equipped to have outdoor dining. I'm very excited for the district. So so you can see Bartle on the left, down the street across from where the police station is are all the tables for the students, and they were eating out there in the spring, which was really nice. So the cafeteria is on that level, so it's just very easy for them to go to the cafeteria, walk out with their food, and then eat outside. And they put extra garbage cans outside for the students, and it was really great to see them eat outside. At Irving, it spans the course of the playground and wraps around it. I didn't see as many students enjoying outdoor dining at Irving, more so at Bartle, but maybe that'll change in the fall for Irving students. Middle and high school are loving theirs as well. So the middle school, if you remember in the spring, we approved to increase the concrete that is along that side of the middle school to be able to place more of the picnic tables. So it's been really nice. And I have seen other people other than students like this summer, community members use them as well. And I like them because they're really sturdy, very hard to break and move around. They're very heavy. So I'm pretty confident that they'll last us a very long time. I know the students at middle and high school absolutely love to be outside. They were outside in the winter when it was really cold too. So I know they use it all year round. And same thing at the high school, coming out of the cafeteria, it stretches along that walkway leading up to the sports complex. So there's a lot of room for the students to enjoy eating outdoors when it's safe. Also, the high school, it was really great to see students they brought blankets and they had picnics outside, which was really nice as well. So sometimes I see them on the side of the high school eating. So I'm looking forward to that continued support of outdoor dining in the fall. And our food service provider knows that as well, and will continue to accommodate the needs of students in that regard. So some of the things that parents will see tomorrow on the safe opening plan: students and staff who are exposed to someone with COVID-19, regardless of vaccination status, and who are asymptomatic, meaning they are not exhibiting any COVID-19 symptoms, do not have to be quarantined. So the CDC put out some updates that regardless of your vaccination status, if you think you've been exposed to somebody, but you're feeling fine, you don't have to quarantine. Although we still have the opportunity for parents to keep their children home with excused absences if need be. So that hasn't gone away, and that can be an option as well. All students and staff, regardless of vaccination status, who test positive for COVID must stay home for at least 5 days after the onset of symptoms or with a positive test. And so then they can come back after. Again, the focus is really on if you're in general, if you're sick, stay home. So that's really where we're going for now. So if you're sick, stay home. But I know we had in last year for students, we had a longer quarantine or stay home policy. We're shortening that, which is a change from last year. It is recommended that students and staff monitor themselves for diagnostic and screening of COVID-19. Certainly, if they're positive, they could still report it, and we still have a requirement to post that information to the Department of Health, and we will continue to do so. I can continue the spreadsheet of positive cases in the district, but it's all about self-monitoring. And then in accordance with the most recent Executive Order 302 by the governor, proof of vaccination or testing is no longer required for staff, and for the Highland Park Public School District, it will be effective immediately. In addition, vaccination or testing is no longer required for students participating in high-risk sports or extracurricular activities. So again, our focus really is, just if you're sick, take care of yourself. I think that is a really big push. I know the nurses will do their due diligence with that as well. Next, I want to shift gears to health and wellness support. So I'm really, really excited about the expansion of our tween center at Bartle and Irving. We have a lot of mental health specialists now in all 4 buildings. So we're really increasing that capacity. I know we had talked about the interns. I believe we're up to 9 interns now under Elizabeth Asamoah's and Scott Roth's mentorship. It's a mix of social workers, school counselors, school psychologists, clinical psychologists. So there is a mix. What we've agreed on that still is in the context of what they're supposed to do for their internship is they will each have a home base. So whether it's Irving, Bartle, middle or high school, and that home base will be where they are predominantly. However, for their internship, part of their internship requirement is that they get the K-12 experience. So they will have some flex time where they will be swapping schools periodically just to gain a little bit of experience, but they will, for the majority of their time, have their home school. So I know that we had talked about that as something important, was to keep that connection for students that connect with those interns, to keep that going, and we will, but to keep in the spirit of the requirements from Rutgers, and what other universities that they belong to, we have to give them a full clinical experience. So they will have some opportunity to expand as well. In addition, Elizabeth and I are we haven't agreed upon a universal screener for mental health, but we're close. The one we used last year was problematic, so we had to pull it, but we are working on reviewing a couple of more developmentally appropriate mental health screeners that we will use to determine the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 interventions. And like I said, our focus this year is on strengthening community through culture and climate and increasing our vertical articulation for mental health and wellness supports. So under Elizabeth Asamoah's leadership as the district's supervisor of counseling, health, and wellness, she has put together 3 tiers of intervention. So tier 1 intervention are our classroom interventions. So along with the restorative practice work for circles, for the responsive classroom, the conscious discipline, the SEL work that we do. This is just a snippet of the work that her department is going to do. And in each of the months, you'll see different colors. And those are her staff members' responsibilities for pushing into the classroom and doing whole class lessons. So you can see in September, there's whole class lessons on resilience and suicide prevention. And that most likely is probably for my guess is the teen center staff and tween center staff. So they'll be pushing into classrooms to do that. What you see in the yellowy orange looks like school counselors. So the school counselors will be pushing in. We have unfortunately the Start Strong State Assessment in September, but we have new student orientation, senior college application process. So they'll be pushing into classrooms with the students to do that. And you can see other examples in October. We have Week of Respect, Violence Prevention Week, enrichment activities, working on creating personal goals for all our students. So our school counselors will be meeting with each student to create personal goals for them for the year. There's red ribbon activities. Our student assistance counselor will be pushing in to do cannabis presentations and red ribbon week activities. So you can see that every month there's some new tier 1 interventions under her administration. Our tier 2 interventions and supports are small group support, and these are personalized and based on student needs. So based on the outcome of the mental health screener and recommendations by all the adults that are working with the students, we can provide tier 2 interventions. So this is the small group, and you can see the teen and tween center staff, for example, would be running those small groups. So we might predict that there are groups on social skills, the Lifelines with Suicide Prevention curriculum, some substance abuse prevention. So Karen, our new student assistance counselor, will be pulling small groups. We're working at the middle school on executive functioning skills, for example, at the high school, peer-to-peer mentoring. And then there's some in general throughout the whole district, school avoidance groups as well. So we have the Wellspring staff coming in to do a leadership academy with students. So you can see that there's a myriad of small group supports for our students as part of tier 2 interventions. And then our tier 3 intervention is individual counseling. So those students that might need that one-to-one counseling will provide that as well as part of the tier 3 interventions. And now again, this is K-12. So I'm really excited about the expansion for all 4 buildings. Not only that all 4 buildings are getting the highest level of support possible, but that there's that vertical articulation, and under Elizabeth's leadership, really working with that staff to make sure that that's happening is really amazing. And lastly, under Elizabeth's leadership, we're going to be implementing the Help Me app. So I know last year we had under our ESSER funds, we used a phone for counseling. It was used a little bit, not as much as we had hoped, but it was utilized nonetheless. It was personed by both Dr. Roth and Ms. Asamoah for a small time after school. It was very hard to try to get something that was had expanded hours. You know, our staff can be exhausted, especially if you're a mental health specialist after a long day, it could be exhausting. So we reached out and got a grant to support fully funding the implementation of the Help Me app. And what it does is it provides help, support, and resources for students, parents, and staff. So it's a lifeline. So if you're in crisis, you can text or call and you get a mental health support specialist on the other end of the line. That's not a staff member in Highland Park, but it's a 24/7 access. There's also lots of resources, as you can see on the slide, to help, link students, staff, or parents to resources in the community, federal resources if need be, and then curriculum and training on building resilience. And that e-therapy is really nice for our students. We also we signed a memorandum of understanding with with Rick Abrams, the chief of police, and the district, and Help Me, that if there's a student that's in severe crisis, in which the district would need to know, or the police would need to know, because they're going to hurt themselves or somebody else, that that information can be communicated to the police or to the school district. So if a student does call and there is a concern about an immediate threat, that we can be notified accordingly, so that we can pull our threat assessment team together and help the student collectively. And lastly, our strategic plan goals, which I know we approved and reviewed in the spring, but I'm really excited for this work. So some of the highlights, I'll just pull out some of the highlights. It'll be posted now on the district's website. A link will be provided to all families tomorrow. The staff got it today. And then I will provide updates in the late fall, late winter, and late spring on our progress for these goals, including, play-based instruction at Irving, which we're very excited for. We have a lot of great professional development, which I'm sure the curriculum committee will talk about that. I want to steal all the spotlight of the committee work. Again, like I said, including conscious discipline. So we're going to incorporate it more at Irving, but expand it to Bartle. Elizabeth and I are currently working on the district-wide mental health tiered intervention, but also our long-term plan, so it's sustainable in the district. And having those student interns is definitely a help with that, because it's lower cost for the district in terms of the operating budget to be able to sustain some level of that support in the future. We're working to revamp the middle school Bartle and Irving in-school suspension to provide welcoming space, therapeutic or emotional component, and academic support. The central leadership team and school administrators are going to work together this year to research and recommend school schedules with the later start time as close to 8:30 as possible, and align to the district's core beliefs on whole child and students' well-being. So we're excited for that work. In terms of instruction and at equity, teachers will select power standards to focus on for their learning experiences, the power standards, so that we can implement equitable grading practices at the middle and high school. So we're continuing that work. We'll be monitoring the implementation of our DTRACT middle school math program. Implementing the honors and AP accessibility cohort. So we did some work with that this summer. As the committee will report out, we had success in some areas, but not in others, but we're excited to continue moving that work forward. Develop and implement tiered interventions and be proactive and provide proactive strategies for discipline. Research and development, develop assessment opportunities that emphasize the transfer of skills, problem solving, creativity, citizenship, and critical thinking. And in the fall, we're going to research and develop SOAR, which is a flexible learning pathways for high school students to achieve course credits for maybe non-traditional classes. So for example, I'm working with Alpha Aviation to bring in an opportunity for students to get drone licenses. So if they would like to get a drone license, they can spend a semester learning about that and getting a drone license. And they can get 2.5 applied physics credit classes or 2.5 credits of a career and tech ed class. So I mapped all of the standards to the applied physics class, so they could get science credits for that. So we're trying to research more flexible pathways to give students opportunities to do, earn high school credit, but maybe not sitting in a traditional class if that's not what they want to do. And lastly, provide professional development to teachers interested in researching the impact of language-based racism. So there's a lot going on this upcoming school year. As you can see, I'm completely thrilled and excited for our goals, welcoming everybody back in a couple of weeks. But obviously in closing, as I always do for these types of presentations, with gratitude. I couldn't do it without the leadership team. I want to thank them for all their hard work this summer, especially Elizabeth Asamoah, who's jumped right into her new role and has really soared with it. And I'm very excited to work with her and her team this year to implement her tiered intervention system. The central leadership team and nurses who had to deal with my emails saying, "Oop, there's changes. Oop, there's more changes for our safe opening plan." So thank you to them. The technology department that's been working around the clock to make sure our tech is up and running for the new school year. Our administrative assistants who do wonderful work in our offices. The facilities and maintenance department to make sure our buildings look really nice for everyone to come back, and our food service provider who jumped on the opportunity to provide the free breakfast and lunches all summer for our students. So a thank you to them, because that was a quick turnaround. So I'm glad we were able to get out food to them. And Linda, one of the last things in closing we are going to do is provide access to help parents apply for free and reduced lunch at some of our upcoming pickup points for the meals and things like that, and really get out in the community and try to encourage people to fill out that application, because there's more than just free food that comes with it. There's a lot of other great resources and opportunities. So we want to make sure that we can get out there and get people the resources and help that they need. So that is it. I probably talked super fast and I apologize. So I will open the floor to any questions.
That was an incredible amount of information. Thank you, thank you so much. It's amazing. Questions? Go in.
Just absolutely amazing. I'm so excited about all the mental health work we're doing and all the conscious discipline and, you know, the vertical articulation of that. That's just great. And I know there'll be a lot of kids excited about drone licenses. That's
I hope
amazing.
so. I hope so.
I think so. Am I correct that school lunch will not be free anymore during the school year? That program is over. That was COVID only. That's unfortunate that our legislators can't get that together.
It is.
But I appreciate you pushing the free and reduced applications.
Yep.
Thank you.
The interns that we get are here for a semester or for a year? Does that change every semester?
They're here for the year,
Year. Oh, that's
but
great.
they're not all here every day. So they have to complete so many hours. It's pretty intense. It's a lot of hours, but they're here quite often. But they're not here like 7 to 3, 5 days a week.
Mhm.
Marilyn, that was my exact question and I forgot it. So thank you.
Good.
I was holding it in my little brain for as long as I could, and then it just went away. So thank you.
And actually, in addition to their responsibilities, they have for their internships and their clinical experience, they have to do so many hours of community building and support as well. So participating in after hours activities, which is nice as well. So we will have 9 of them to be able to support any kind of programming that we want to do after school, which Elizabeth is working on now. The Elizabeth and Brooke for different reasons, but our after school programming that will happen for parents and for students.
That's great. Good, Rob.
Christina, in relation to the safe opening plan, I do have a bit of hesitancy about reducing the vaccination requirement. I do understand it's dual edged because if we maintain that requirement, then it's much harder to find staff and people to fill those positions. But are we still going to be promoting a strong vaccination sort of stance with our opening plan?
Yes, great question, Rob. And actually, it was part of an executive order. So I know the central leadership team talked about it. And as much as we agree that vaccination should still be required, it's hard to go against an executive order. That's a big battle. But we will continue to promote vaccinations. In addition, if you know the need and we need to even host vaccination clinics, we certainly will do that as well. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I assume that all means that the letters home that's the end of that as well, right? The contact or because the administrative, I mean, I certainly understood the need for that at the height of the pandemic, but that administratively, I can't even imagine what a nightmare that was.
Correct. So contact tracing is really not a thing anymore.
Right.
So we won't be sending home the letters. I also want to put it in perspective too, which I should have included in my more formal presentation, and I can update it because I know it's posted on the web. But something really important to note is that the original funding that we got to provide all students internet access that needed it came out of the original CARES and Digital Divide grants circa like 2 years ago. And it was a 2-year grant, that Digital Divide grant and the original CARES grant to provide internet access. 2 years is over. So right now we do not have the ability to afford to get students in need internet, which is why the option for quarantine or remote instruction unfortunately is not on the table anymore either. So if you're sick, you stay home, and we go to throwback pre-pandemic, which is sick, you stay home. And if it's an extensive amount of time, we can send homework or home instruction or whatever, you know, for whatever the reason is, but we just do not have, it costs a lot of money. And I'm sure, I don't know if Linda knows some of the numbers off the top of her head on how much it cost the district, but I remember Altice, it was $3 a month per student. And at upwards of times we had about maybe a couple hundred, you know, easy, a couple hundred students on that at any given time. So, yeah, that money is over.
That's a big deal.
A really big deal. Anne?
So that raises the question that we've dealt with for years. Before you came on board as superintendent, what are we going to do about all the online homework?
So I've already talked to the administrators about that, by the way, and there is
I'm sure
none.
you have.
There is none. So there is nothing that, what I don't want to call it homework, I call it out of school learning,
Out of school learning.
because not all of our students have homes to go to. So to call it homework seems really inappropriate.
Good
But
point.
learning outside of school, or doing work outside of school, if it involves any kind of technology, it is not, it's not allowed. Unless you
Wow.
if you provide an alternative. So if you say, here's the paper copy or this copy, but and that's really for the high school for our AP classes and things like that, that may need to do it more so than others. But the directive from my office has been no homework tech outside of the school.
That's fantastic. Thank you. I think that's going to be quite a culture change. I mean, my kids have been doing online homework for years and years and years. And I know for a while, your predecessor had a policy that an alternative had to be provided. And it was obviously incredibly difficult for teachers to, do that with every assignment or with every, out of school learning opportunity. And it wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. So there were lots and lots of assignments. So I hope that can really be reinforced. Because we spent a lot of years this is even before you initiated the laptop program. So kids didn't even have computers.
Yeah.
But clearly with the online thing, it's going to be a problem. And I hope we can really sort of drive home the need to provide alternatives. That's a
Yeah,
tough one.
Yeah, I will do my best, but we all have to be all hands on deck, and we all have to communicate and collaborate, right? And so I don't know what I don't know. And neither do the administrative team. So I'm not saying that we need to be like tattletales or people, things like that. But
No.
but it's all about equity and access. And it's not fair that our students that don't have the ability to can't, and they shouldn't be at a disadvantage. So it's really important that we are all in strong communication and all on the same page.
That's fantastic. Yeah, we had a hard time getting that to actually happen before. And it's true that, Dr. Taylor, wasn't always aware of what was going on in the individual classrooms. So, it's obviously a huge management issue. I hope that will be advertised to students so that students will know that they need to speak up if it's not happening. I mean, I think a lot of students in the old days didn't know that there was any kind of option. And so, for them to have to be like, hey, Mr. Whatever, I don't have enough money for the internet or a computer. Can that was tough. So I hope there'll be, students will be made aware.
Yeah, that's great. I think what I'll do is I'll put a letter out from my office. That's a great suggestion, Ann. Thank you.
Great. Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Darcy, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, just real quick along those lines. It was when I got an email today from Brooke Baldazone about the Smart Strong assessments and the ability for parents to opt out, which is like, I mean, so many levels, like hip hip hooray, like fantastic that we're on top of that. But to kind of tag it onto that, the conversation you were just having, it was an attached PDF that you then have to print out, fill out, and then have someone bring it into the office. So for anyone who's challenged in terms of internet connection, a printer, whatever, that's not going to work for a lot of families. So, as I was getting ready to print it out today, I was like, wow, okay, that's not going to work for everybody. So there's got to be another way to distribute that information to families and allow families to let the district know that they don't want their kids to participate in that exam.
Yeah, so maybe I'll follow up with her and see if we can come up with a protocol. Maybe it's keeping copies in the main office and they can swing by the main office and get one, or send it home.
Or that the parents could just reply to an email, right? Just
Yeah.
email the
Yeah.
the administrative assistant, and God, that could not get that word out. The administrative assistant in each building to, just an easier way for parents to be able to do it.
All right, I'll
And
follow up.
no one has time to come by the school, unfortunately.
Yeah. And you can't get a kid to take anything out of their backpack, let alone go get a letter, bring it home, take it out of your backpack, give it to me, bring it back. Never going to happen. Like never.
Mark?
Yes, thanks, Marilyn. On the subject of Brooke and grant programs, what's the possibility of the school contacting I don't know what provider provided us with the internet access for the students at these reduced rates, but perhaps Brooke or someone else in the district could contact, be it AT&T or Verizon or whoever, and have, see if we can get a grant for them for a year or 2 years to pay for the internet access for students who don't have, and get some press out of it, if
Yeah,
nothing
so-
else.
Yeah, so
Right, yeah,
we've
that's-
tried to look at that in the past, because I was the one that got Altice originally.
I
when
remember.
we-
Thank you.
When we all went to shelter in place, we had looked into some companies, but they have to service our area. So first you have to go on, whether it's AT&T or Verizon, and you have to look that internet service provider services Highland Park,
Right,
number one. And Altice was the one that did. When I reached out to
Right.
them originally, they gave us March to the end of June for free when we originally went to shelter in place. And then they gave us the discounted rate of $3 per student per month. We did look into some other of the grants. Unfortunately, we don't qualify because our numbers of free and reduced lunch don't hit that threshold.
I see. Okay,
So we do have a good amount, but we're not large enough and we don't have that many to qualify for many of the grants that are out there.
Okay.
Again, we can certainly try again, but that was just our experience for the past year and a half.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Anne and Darcy, so looking across.
Never mind. I'm gonna put my hand down. Thank you. Lower hand. How do I do it? Oh, it's down.
You did it.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm putting hands down. Sorry.
Someone
Darcy.
put it down. Thank you. Thank you.
I just had a wacky idea. If it's $3 a student per month, I'd sponsor a few kids, like, I mean, maybe there's a way we can do this as some sort of like, I mean, we do all kinds of coat drives and, whatever, like, I can't imagine if we've got 200 kids who don't have connectivity, that there aren't at least 100 or so families that would be willing to say they'd sponsor a kid.
Right now, it's not $3 though, right?
Huh?
It's not $3 right now though, right? We'd have to get the grant to do that.
No,
Is that
no,
right?
I mean,
No,
like,
no.
no, right now we're currently paying $3.
Oh, I thought that was in advance. Oh, I see.
No,
The
$3.
$3 thing is,
Right, so it's $30, I mean, so $30 a year per student, essentially.
Right.
And
I
it's,
see. I thought that was
students?
part of.
is
that
it
had been
200,
taken.
200 students?
I don't know, I have to look back at the spreadsheet. Once I pulled into the world of superintendency, I gave Stephen Lubis, our tech coordinator, the full
If it's a
responsibility
number,
of
It's a great
managing
idea.
for it.
if it's a number like, I mean, Darcy, sorry to interrupt, but if it's a
Nope.
number
I
like
know, me too.
$1,000, let's say, or am I doing that right? 200 students times $30 is $6,000. I'm gonna read some extra grant money we got from the state, that is, I mean, there's other expenses we're gonna have, but $6,000 to make everyone's homework life easier just seems to me to be kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, right. Oh, so right now I'm looking at the spreadsheet now. Again, I don't know. It was last updated on in March by Steven. So we're at about 280 students.
Oh, it's that many.
Yeah, 280
But
students.
I mean, even then, it's under, it's, $8,000 or $9,000. Is it, whatever, finance should talk about this.
Okay.
Because it makes every student and every teacher's life so much easier,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
it's not a fortune. I mean, it's not like we're saying it's 80,000, that's a different issue.
Right. So maybe
we
we'll put it on the finance and facilities for the upcoming agenda item. Linda, you and I'll talk about pulling some numbers
Please,
and looking.
let's try to do this.
Okay.
And for
Perfect.
some reason, it doesn't work. I love the idea of doing a coat drive,
Sponsoring is good
Internet
also.
drive. Yeah.
It's just,
I mean, that's fantastic.
It's
I
a
didn't
great-
realize we did still have the $3 deal. That's great. I know it's too much for some people, but it's better than, some of the alternatives.
No, that's a great idea. Yeah, and it's obviously would make such a difference for not only these students, but for everybody else in terms of assignments and stuff.
affects everybody.
Affects everybody apparently. So that would be great if that we could pull that off. Okay, any other questions on Dr. Nicosia's report? For now, then we're going to move on to board committee reports. And Allison is very graciously going to present both curriculum and then equity and excellence. So she's got her work cut out here for us.
Yes, here we go. All right, the agenda items for curriculum instruction are to improve field trip requests that are already coming in. The approval of 2 HIB incident reports, HIB BS 212209A and 09B. The approval for the memorandum of understanding with Rutgers University regarding those interns and teaching interns. The approval for the job description of the AP test coordinator. That position came about from when the lead counselor position was kind of pulled out into its own position. And then all of the AP test duties that were involved in that are now created under its own position, which I'll kind of go over in a few minutes. And then approval for the university graduates and teachers for student internships listed. I think there's 2 write-ins, am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, 2 write-ins, one for math and one for social studies. And they're all listed on page 2 and 3 of the agenda. So the curriculum committee met on August 16th. It was Dr. Nicosia, myself, and Monique, Ms. Coleman. Our first item was a presentation from Jason Richardson on the proposed ski club. He presented a pitch in order to kind of, show the interest that the students had in the ski club. The club originally came about through a parent alumni and also a student at one of the community events wanting to kind of gauge interest because he was very interested in snowboarding and he wanted to kind of, encourage more students to participate in snowboarding and winter sports, extreme sports. A group of alumni and other community members are potentially applying for an HPEF grant or starting a GoFundMe to provide funding for students who would need financial assistance, specifically for free and reduced lunch. The idea behind that is that skiing is very expensive. We have some preliminary numbers as to what it would cost. So in order to, expand access to this club, there would need to be fundraising and donations in order to encourage more participation from students who may not originally want to be or could not participate. On an interest survey that was administered, 96 students indicated interest in the ski club. The survey did not mention the possibility of financial assistance, so potentially that number could increase if we do mention the possibility of financial assistance. 15% of those students who expressed interest were Black, Hispanic, or Latinx. That does not kind of align with the proportion, the proportion of those students in our school, so it does seem to underrepresent interest from our Black and Brown students. That is a concern because we want to encourage clubs and after school activities that target our populations that don't right now, we don't have the data showing that they're actively involved. So this ski club kind of doesn't really fit into that category because historically it's been a very Caucasian sport. But Mr. Richardson was quick to point out that one of the students that did generate interest was the student that spoke to him at a community event and how he wanted to kind of encourage more Black and Brown students to participate in winter sports. The committee discussed marketing to students in financial need through the teen center, through their counselors, zone 6 school safety officers, depending on which person had a better relationship with the student. The committee also discussed extending financial assistance to students on the cusp of free and reduced lunch. So potentially if there were students interested and the funds were available, that those students could also be funding because again, it is an expensive sport. Preliminary numbers, and these were from last year when Mr. Richardson inquired, ran about $250 for the entire ski season. So that included 3 trips, with transportation, with equipment rental, with food, so everything all included. But it depends on the scale, so that those numbers might change. And we also do have a staff member, Cheryl Magaziner, who has volunteered to be the advisor of the club. So I did say that one concern was that this would be another club that historically does not target our Black and Brown students. Dr. Nicosia will gather data on the demographics of clubs. We had followed up on a previous discussion about creating clubs that interest our Black and Brown students, and there will be an opportunity at the club fair for students to make suggestions for clubs that they would like to see. The second item on our agenda was to go over our in-service day schedules, in addition to regular department meetings, classroom prep, lesson planning, All of the usual things that take place at the beginning of the year. Irving is having extensive professional development on play-based learning, using play to manage conflicts and relationships. There's going to be some responsive classroom work with, I think, Bartle and middle school. So responsive classroom is actually moving up to the middle school, and Miss Brady and Miss Liska are going to lead that work. Miss Lavella is providing anti-racist professional development, kind of a session on that in order to recruit more of our Bartle teachers to participate in that professional development with the Philly Children's Movement. Middle school and high school will engage in substance abuse training, and Officer O'Mara will present security updates as mandated by law. And then the culture and climate theme will be tied together with Rudy Cafele, and the leadership teams will turnkey work from their professional developments to staff. The committee discussed integrating culturally responsive and restorative practice work into the PD. Dr. Nicosia followed up with Dr. Valdezone and kind of went over how responsive classroom by nature is culturally responsive, and how there are restorative practices integrated into morning meetings and share sessions, learning about rules and consequences and taking accountability for one's actions. The other things that we discussed was the AP test coordinator position that I mentioned earlier. That will be a position of that is a stipend of $3,500 to be funded by the AP funds and district operating budget. And we have two policies: the care for school property and the student identification cards. The committee was wondering, there was some language in the policy about having to produce an ID card upon request by a staff member. And we were like, how often does this happen? Because, you know, we're such a small school district. But it is really important for students to provide ID cards, one, to identify themselves, but it's also important for them to have it on campus because they do speed up the lunch process. They can scan it, and lunch payment moves more smoothly. They also require the ID in order to leave for lunch. And we had a question about, well, what's going to happen if someone doesn't, provide an ID card, and failure to identify oneself is in our discipline code and would result in a restorative disciplinary action. And those are the curriculum and instruction minutes. Any questions? Yes, Anne.
I'm sorry, Anne, you have your hand up.
Oh,
I think I put it up by mistake, but yeah, I too am curious. I don't think we need to be adding to our discipline code something about.
Yeah, the failure to identify is already in there. So
Oh, it's already in there? You already have to provide a designation?
Yeah.
Well, that seems like it's ripe for amendment at some point, but future discussion.
Okay.
We discussed how it's with a lot of subs in the building coming in, there are people in the building present that do not know each student or do not know each face. So in order to usually identify oneself, one might say, well, what English teacher do you have? Or, well, let me see your schedule. So those are other options of identifying oneself. So this issue of not providing an ID card does not happen. Pretty much.
That would be, yeah, it'd be great to sort of maybe modify the policy to reflect that reality. I mean, I don't like the idea of subs coming in who don't know the students, demanding ID cards from students. And I'm sure most subs would be like, wow, that's a wacky, that'd be a wacky practice, but it also seems inappropriate. So I like your idea of having, students have to respond in some way, They
are required to have an ID card though. So I'm assuming that then they would just go get a replacement. They didn't have one.
I just hope we won't be disciplining students who fail to have an ID card to show to a substitute who doesn't know them. I'm sure.
I think, Dr. Nicosia, didn't you go back and check with the high school and the middle school what the current practice is?
Yes, correct. So it's, by the way, this is just for middle and high school, Bartle and Irving, no ID cards or anything like that. So this is middle and high school, and there's no disciplinary action. It's just more if they fail to in some way communicate who they are. So to Allison's point, right, if they don't want to give information on who they are or answer questions or things like that. So it just becomes a conversation, but there's a restorative work that's done for them to understand like why someone might be asking, for that information, what led to it, that kind of thing. So there's no formal disciplinary action that's taken for it.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. I can't imagine it comes up too much if people are just like, oh my God.
No, but we have, but we did talk about a couple incidences, particularly at the high school where there were people in the building that weren't current students that didn't have
Mhm.
appointments.
Right. Right.
So, you know, again, it doesn't happen often. It's not, but it, you know, every once in a blue moon.
Cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
Just a thought that crossed my mind in the last couple of things we've talked about is how critical the free and reduced lunch forms are. I mean, you just mentioned it again, you know, in addition to food, is the other things that it provides access to. You're saying that about the ski club money, you know, might, you know, go towards students that have those forms in. So to your point, Dr. Nicosia, getting those forms in from a large group could really help us with a lot of other issues.
And those are, of course, still sent home in hard copy, right? As difficult as it may be to get kids to take things out of their backpack. Those are not provided by a printout PDF, correct?
No, it's all done through
Yeah,
our Genesis student information system, which puts it out at the top of Genesis, the parent portal. You can change your language to any language.
Mhm.
So it can put it out in their home language to complete it. We also, under Linda's leadership a couple of years ago, we put laptops in each of the main offices for the purpose of encouraging, if they're new registration, like how do you log into your parent portal, how do you access information, fill out the application. It's I've looked at it, and when I used to hand it out to my students as a teacher, and I'm not sure if I could fill it out correctly. It's a really hard form to fill out.
A lot of stuff, yeah.
It is a lot. So what we want to also do is provided that support. So that's why we put the laptops in each of the main offices so that there's a support there if a parent or guardian needs help filling it out. There's that support. That's why too, Linda and I are working with her staff to, you know, have support at some of our meal distribution times to be able to. I'll try my best. I'm not sure if I can fill it out correctly. I might need Linda's help for that, but if you try to fill it out, it is very.
It's long. It's
and confusing. It's long and confusing. I feel bad. Go ahead, Linda.
Two things. Just today, my admin was a little confused about whether you put in gross pay or net pay on your income. So it doesn't say. I did want to mention that we have provided each school with a handful of the paper applications in case anyone wants to fill out paper. We still accept it. It's just we try to encourage people to do it electronically.
But it's on Genesis, so it's easy to find.
Yes. In
Mhm.
fact,
Then you can struggle with it later.
if I can add to that, we just opened Genesis when Thursday.
Yeah, a couple days ago.
We already had 38 applications.
Good.
And
Good.
last week I went onto the state's website to directly certify anyone who was eligible from the state because they get food stamps or things like that. And it was about 250 people. So we
Wonderful.
already have, you know, almost 300 people either eligible or have applied.
Good.
So we are
Thank you.
getting some good
That's great.
response.
And maybe having, I think it's been mentioned in the past, maybe back to school nights, if we can have like a station set up with a laptop and a staff member. They might get a few more who can do it with one-on-one help. Would be helpful.
Ooh, I had a thought. What about at the having them at the food pantry in town?
That's
Good
great. I
idea.
love that. I love that. Yeah.
Yep, we can put some there.
Yeah, if we can have if we can have the forms there. You think
Yeah, we'll do the paper forms there.
That's a good idea, yeah.
That's less embarrassing than doing it, back to school night in front of all your,
Yeah.
okay. Not that people should be embarrassed, but of course we all are embarrassed when we admit some
Yeah,
kind of
but we
weakness.
wouldn't, we would
need.
do it in, you know, on a computer in a, you
Yeah,
know,
no, I
not in a
wouldn't
public.
say free and reduced lunch station,
Yeah,
right
come
here.
here if you
Oh,
want to
yeah.
apply. No,
And
no.
Right.
I'm blanking on her name, but the woman who's been working with the Reformed Church to do the vaccination stuff also seems to be
Oh,
doing,
Dr. Bo, yeah.
food distribution stuff. So she might be another good person to get in touch with to give forums, or just she may know of other people and,
Yeah, great idea. I love
communication
that.
with people. So, people in town who do this kind of food distribution work with the community would be really good to kind of loop in.
Yeah,
I suspect Ashton wouldn't be so comfortable with it because he's pretty big on, not naming people, but through HP Gives a Hoot and the Teen Center, it's also 40 some plus families a week are being served. if Ashton was willing, or there was some way through his system, you could get, you can get more families also.
Well, couldn't Ashley just have the forms available, even if he doesn't want to like tell
Yeah.
us, you know?
Yeah, he could just
I
have
mean,
them out on like when you first
Yeah,
walk in there.
confidentiality, I
Yeah.
respect, I respect
Yeah.
that. Maybe.
Right,
there's
right, yeah, he doesn't need to tell us, they can identify themselves, but if they had the form at the,
Maybe. it
at
would
Zone 6,
be a
that,
better place,
that
yeah.
could be useful. I like that idea.
Okay, we're gonna put you back on the seat there, Allison. You've got equity and excellence.
All right, there are no agenda items for equity and excellence. Dr. Nicosia, Ms. Bruce, myself, and Ms. Coleman attended on Monday, August 16th. First agenda item was mental health support and threat assessment protocols. Dr. Nicosia shared that there is new state legislation requiring that school districts have a threat assessment team. We already have a threat assessment team, and our policies and protocols were reviewed by Lifelines. Elizabeth Asamoah is working with admin, school mental health counselors, and psychologists to identify any students who are identified for support through threat assessment protocols. Dr. Nicosia is also working with Ms. Asamoah on compiling the district's threat assessment protocols and threat assessment teams for each building to present to the board. Dr. Nicosia will present the district's 3-tiered approach to mental health support at our board meeting, which was earlier. So she already did that. And Dr. Nicosia will share that the district's working on providing free access to the Help Me app that she presented on earlier. Students, parents, and guardians and staff will have access to the app's hotline. They can text or call if there's a crisis to access mental health support. And the app also includes a range of additional mental health services. And once the arrangement's finalized, more information will be distributed. We also discussed the AP Honors cohort demographics info and a recap. The 9th grade program had 0 Black students out of 17 that signed up for AP or Honors, 2 Hispanic or Latinx students out of 41 total Hispanic or Latinx students that are taking AP and Honors, and 0 students with IEPs. The 10th and to 12th grade cohort only had 1 person sign up, so they were kind of looped into the 9th grade cohort. There was a focus group. More information is to come with their feedback. Ms. Bruce raised that there was an underrepresentation of Black and Hispanic and Latino students in the 9th grade cohort. We discussed the importance of engaging and supporting underrepresented students in this AP Honors cohort during the school year. And of ensuring that the cohort program serves the goal of increasing the AP Honors participation among historically underrepresented students. Ms. Coleman also suggested getting the help of Dr. Lacey Hunter, the district's equity consultant, to assist in the AP Honors access committee in developing targeted, enhanced outreach and engagement efforts. In addition to the above areas, we briefly reviewed the following topics that will continue to be a part of Equity and Excellence Committee discussions over the new year, which include racist language instruction and tracking reading instruction in the elementary grades. And Michelle Rodriguez will continue working on those and providing updates. Another item was recruitment and retention of staff of color. Dr. Nicosia emphasized the broad need across general, special education, and language teachers, and Ms. Coleman will provide a list of Black Greek Alumni Association contacts and other organizations for recruitment outreach. We also discussed improving diversity in students' participation in high school clubs. We're going to be, Dr. Nicosia will be compiling and presenting current demographic data. We also discussed using the Club Fair Day to gauge student club interests. Ms. Coleman requested that the committee receive periodic reporting on demographic data for in-school and out-of-school suspensions. Dr. Nicosia agreed to share this in a similar manner that's done with academic data. And we looked at the same 2 policies of care of school property and the student identification cards. Any questions?
No questions. Thank you, Allison. Super thorough. Mark, you're up. Finance and facilities.
Yes, thank you. That's hard reports to follow. Great job.
Yeah,
sure. The finance committee met on August 2nd, the night after our last board meeting 3 weeks ago. And it was a long agenda, and I did send minutes out soon after. I want to review those and also review it for the community. So we did have some change orders regarding the sports complex. Among those were some of the extra money put in for contingencies, which won't be used, and will save us close to $100,000. However, most of that money is slated to go back to projects not in the original plan. Replacement of the fence around the field, painting the goalposts, and a request from the council, who's helping us fund this, to put markings on the field for youth soccer. So if we add that all up, that uses up most of the money, but we will still have perhaps $10,000 or $15,000 to put back into capital reserve of money that won't be spent on the sports complex. And as you heard from Dr. Nicosia, the field is almost done. I walked by there the other day. It's starting to look beautiful. So it'll be great. Be great to come back to, and it's amazing that we finally got this project done or close to done. A second item on our agenda was a discussion of the before and after care program financial condition. So that program entered 2019 with approximately $250,000 in retained earnings. In other words, money in the savings bank. And since it had run break even for many years after accruing the savings, it had been running kind of break even more, in the years before 2019. But there was a lot in the bank and it was staying in the bank. Fees have not been raised in approximately, we think, 10 years. Longer, Linda?
I've been told that they were never raised since it started, which was over 20 years ago.
20 years. Okay, we weren't sure when we talked. So
Yeah.
20 years, those fees haven't been raised. Oh, by the way, and the fees for free and reduced lunch families are extraordinarily low, and which, as it should be, but the majority of the students in these programs are from families with free and reduced lunch. So the revenue side has been difficult, but had been breaking even. The pandemic, this is though a casualty, which we're going to fix, but it's a casualty. That money, that $250,000, was a casualty of the pandemic. Very few students signed up, yet we continued to pay staff. And that was one of the rules of the pandemic for schools. You continue to pay people. So we were paying the staff that had been there. When the pandemic got less bad, we had the extra staff, even for fewer students, when some students were coming because of the distancing issues. And over the years 2020 through 22, or 2020 through 22, that $250,000 is gone. That program has almost no money right now. Last year it ran, I think, $75,000 deficit, likely to be a similar deficit if nothing is done. So one thing we are going to do immediately, and I don't have the latest on this, but I know we discussed this, was to to have the correct number of staff for the number of students. And that could save an enormous amount of money, which we have to save money. We can't run an enormous deficit there. The second thing we could do is the district takes a use fee. That use fee has been $35,000, but some of that has been waived along the way. And what we would have to do is waive some of that. And again, or at least lower some of that. And the third item we discussed was raising the fees. They're not commensurate with other districts. We're much, much lower than other districts. They haven't been raised. I thought it was 10 years and 20 years. But we won't do that on day one. We're going to run the program. In the fall, we'll evaluate where we are once the program is running. What's the deficit or not deficit? And then based on that, we may have to, in January, increase the rates, the fees. We did talk about other alternatives. I don't want to, and does not include closing the program, but there are other alternatives. We may have to investigate that if all of by having the correct number of staff and lowering the usage fee and possibly raising the tuition. If none of all of that helps, there's possibly partners we can do this with who have better access to federal funds than we do to support the program, especially for free and reduced lunch children. So that's not good news, but we cannot be funding that for $75,000 or $100,000. That's simply not something the district can afford to do. The third item we discussed was a residency consultant expert. If you remember, about 4 or 5 years ago, we put a program in place to try to find who might not be really living in the district anymore, and it was very tedious and fizzled at the end. So, we got down to a handful of families that we thought might not be here, and nothing was done. It just kind of fizzled out. What we discussed was a program when we know, which we do know now, families who never answer their emails that come as a matter of course to the district. When I say not answer, not receive them, they come back to us. So you get the letter back, then you get the letter back again, then you send a certified letter, that comes back. So the family isn't living there, they're not living there, and that's where it fizzled out last time. Except in one case where we got a tip that someone was registering their child into a special education out of district program at our expense into kindergarten and didn't live here. When we did hire a residency consultant and they got the evidence of that family re-registered their child where they really lived. I hope this is all understandable, but we know families that probably or may not live here, and it is on the agenda to put on a consultant who's a residency expert and have them check on families who we believe likely or possibly don't live in town and are using our facilities. And remember, in the case where the child was registered here and they did not live in our district, this was an out-of-district cost for a kindergartner that might have cost the district $75,000 a year for 12 years. And that's disastrous if that's happening for the taxpayer. We had no new policies. We did get 2 very good pieces of news, and they are in our, we are going to vote on them tonight. The district was approved based on a federal government program, which requires states to give a more full share of state aid to school districts. We were approved to get an additional approximately $850,000, which is extraordinary. I mean, we've never heard of something like this before, but we are getting $850,000. And then we were approved to get approximately $250,000 to reimburse us for the costs associated with special education students beyond age 21 per the law that was put in effect during COVID. We have to educate students with special needs above age 21, but that will reimburse us $250,000, which we have not budgeted. So it's a significant amount of money. So to offset that, and this is also on the agenda, we learned that health benefits, which are just out, the cost will increase by medical by 15%, prescription almost 8%. And we budgeted for a 5% increase, which has been consistent over the last two or 3 years when Chapter 44, the new law controlling that, was put into place. So that's a giant hit for us, which might use up the bulk of that $850,000 plus $250,000 if it really comes to pass. So that's the report. And you should have gotten an email on this. Maybe before I go into the agenda, does anyone have questions about any of this? Darcy, you have your hand up?
Darcy, it's Anne who has her hand up. Darcy,
Oh, no, is that not you? Oh,
no.
no, okay, I'm sorry.
Not Darcy?
And you have your hand up. Sorry.
Oh, sure. No, just thank you, Mark. That was incredibly detailed. You talked about reducing usage fees. What did that mean? What was that?
Oh, for the
For
after school. Yeah,
Sorry,
we
yeah.
charge the after school program for the use of our facility. And we've done that forever. One problem we had was if we didn't do that all those years, when they were building up all this money,
Yeah,
they weren't allowed to really to keep much more than they had in their reserve. Their reserve was too high at $250,000. So we had to charge. This year, I think, or last year, we reduced the amount because they were losing so much money. So we could reduce that again.
I think
I
last year we
see.
didn't take it at all.
We didn't take it at all
No.
because they were losing so much. But I think the idea would be to reduce that. We spend that money on something. When we get that money, we spend it on something. We budgeted something for it, but we would
Right.
reduce that use fee. And that would hopefully, between reducing the use fee, as I said, having the right amount of people hired for the number of students using the program, and then possibly if we have to raising the rates, which we haven't raised, it appears, in 20 years, which looked to me, looking around, to be 60% of what other districts are charging. So we're charging not a fraction, but we're charging 60% of what other districts are charging. If we would increase that to save the program.
that makes sense. When you said reduced number of staff, so you mean the ratio of staff to students will be
Yes,
lower?
yes, because it had to be higher because of we had to keep staff on during COVID.
Right.
We couldn't lay anyone off, and we had no students. Then we had 20 students. We still had to keep the staff on. Now, if we get, for instance, 20 students, we would have the correct number of staff ratio for them. That
So
was
we'll wait
where
to see what happened. Oh, sorry.
we're going to see
Okay.
what happens in the fall.
Okay.
We're going to see
Okay.
what happens in the fall. And I mean, if they lose a few dollars in the fall, they will, but then we can adjust. And if they lose too much money, then we're going to have to adjust more drastically, perhaps get a partner. But we
Okay.
have to do something. We can't be funding $75,000 a year.
Understood. One other question about the residency consultant expert. So that's a retired police officer, it looks like.
Yes.
So what kind of activities will he be engaged in? Will he be like staking out houses? Will he be doing this for everybody who didn't respond? How will this look?
On a case-by-case basis, he'll do what the person did who was a retired police sergeant 4 years ago, who he took pictures, for instance, of the kid leaving the house with their mother from another adjacent town and driving to our school.
Mhm.
He established the residency of the people by looking at online records.
Mhm.
So yeah, they would do the kinds of things that a detective is trained to do. And we have a report online, if you'd like to look, I think late 2017, 2018. The residency expert at that time was named Palfrey, Palfrey, or Palfrey, Palfey. And he gave us a very, very detailed report, such that when the family got a copy of, or their attorney got a copy of that report, they immediately moved the kid back to their own district, which was pretty funny. We'll want to do that on a case-by-case basis. I mean, if someone's mail hasn't been reaching them for 2 years, including certified letters, and someone else 1 year, we go after the 2 years first and find out if they really live here. And
Right, okay.
I leave that to the administration, but we do know, and it sadly shows the kind of the error of sending all of those letters home to people to reprove they lived in town, the hundreds of letters and all the administrative time, because we got down to a small number at that point, and all the air was out of the bubble and nothing got done. And so here we know there are people. So let's do something about them. and find out. And maybe they live here, but they moved across the street, or who knows what.
Or
But
there's a custody issue or, divorce or something.
that's right, or a custody issue.
Right.
But I think this is very wise, and it could be a substantial amount of money. I mean, the case we know about was someone who wasn't happy with the program in the town nearby for special education. They had an in-house program, and this parent wanted them in an outside program.
Right. No,
And they knew that we would have to, because we didn't have such a program for their child,
right.
and costing us a fortune. But the other district just puts the kid in their in-house program. So we could save tens of or hundreds of thousands of dollars if that's what's happening.
No, yeah, no, it sounds like we have an obligation to the taxpayer to make sure
Yep.
we're not spending huge amount of money. Just one more question. Will the officer be empowered to like interview folks, like knock on their doors and say,
No.
no, it'll just be getting
No.
evidence and then any questions will be asked by us? Okay, good.
Well, by our attorney.
Right.
I
Okay.
think,
right,
I
right.
think when the attorney got the report, the attorney sent it to the family and then talked to their attorney. In
Right,
that
sorry.
case,
But not by the retired officer.
the retired officer is just going to do surveillance.
Okay, excellent. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Dr. Nicosia, you have anything else to add to that, or that pretty much covered it?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we have a lot of internal processes and procedures before we get to that. That's like DEFCON 5, like that's our last resort. So we start with the returned mail. Once we get returned mail, we contact parents and guardians and just say, hey, we got a return letter. Could you provide us an updated address, for bringing your proof of address and all of that? And we kind of stay on it. And what happens is sometimes we have families that don't. And then we bring that to Linda Hofla and her office's attention, because then we will submit letters to say, please submit this, or we will be asking you to pay tuition. And so there's many tiers.
Before we get to top, yeah.
Begging
Okay.
them to bring the documentation to us before we get to that stage. But unfortunately, we have a couple of cases which we are spinning our wheels, that we've been trying for at least 1.5 years, 2 years to get some information on. Mark isn't wrong in that aspect.
Right, no, I'm sure. Yeah.
To try to get that. So it's, if your mail returns to us, that is not that particular case. It's that
Okay.
we've done all of our internal measures and processes, and now we need help.
Well, this sounds like a much better idea than having everybody come into the gym and, I mean, yeah, great.
I
Thank you.
don't know why we all agreed to that back then, but it was in a good cause. And I think if we had known that we knew of cases already, I think we might have taken a different action. It was a huge administrative headache when we did that, and a headache for some families. So well-intentioned, but not the best. Okay, if there's no more questions, I'm going to go through the agenda quickly, except I do have the resolution on the school health benefits plan, which I will read in, but I don't get a sore throat. So there's two bill lists for the dates July 1st through July 31st, totaling approximately $880,000. There is a cafeteria bill list for just under $13,000. We have our treasurer's reports, board secretary reports, educational certifications, up to number 9. We have budget transfers, numbers 10 and 11. We have travel and related expense reimbursements, number 12. We have 6 contractors for professional services, for different kinds of professional services. We have number 14, a list of out-of-district placements for the 2022-23 school year per children's IEPs. It's a long list. As some of you might note, the numbers have gone up. The special education schools are charging more. I mean, we have several numbers, which are very high, 117,000, 121,000, 114,000, 135,000. That does not include summer. It does not include the transportation. So these are very large numbers. We haven't seen numbers like these before. We do have then number 15, submission of the IDA grant amendment number 2 to reclassify social worker services from salaries to contracted. Approval of a submission of amendments number 16 for the ESSER 3 grant, amending the grant to reclassify mental health grant budget from salaries to purchase support services and reclassify main funds from equipment to supplies and materials. Number 17, we accept $851,093 from the one-time maintenance of equity state aid for 21-22 school year in accordance with NJSA 18A:7F-5B. And this was prompted by the federal government requiring all of the states to equalize state aid properly, which is interesting because we never got much of our full state aid, and here's some catching up, but not that much catching up. And then number 18 is reimbursement for providing additional compensatory special education related services in the amount of $269,154. As I said, this is for the cost of students last year who were over 21 and had IEPs, special education students that the law during COVID pandemic rules were required to educate to an older age. The last one is a resolution opposing the proposed increase to school employee health benefits program. I'll be moving that we accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve this resolution. I'll read this in brief quickly.
Required to read it in, is that?
Well, I am not. So let me simply say, instead of
Well, it's long.
everyone's 10 minutes, it's getting late. This says effectively that it's an absurdly high increase, that those numbers are set by a board, that the board is governed by the legislature and the governor's office, and that we implore our legislators and the speaker, the assembly and Senate state leaders and the governor's office and our local legislators to look back at this and put pressure on them to lower this to a sustainable rate. We can't afford the 10% extra in our $5 or $6 million health benefits costs. We're talking $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, which just increases every year. It's going to go up even more next year. So I want to give I'll read the last couple of paragraphs. And now therefore be it resolved by the Highland Park Board of Education and the County of Middlesex, call upon the School Employees Health Benefits Commission to reconsider the rate increase and strike a rate increase that is appropriate in the current economic conditions. Be it further resolved that the Highland Park Board of Education and the County of Middlesex urge the legislature to adopt legislation expanding the composition of that commission and the design committee to include additional representatives from local school district management. Be it further resolved that the Highland Park Board of Education and the County of Middlesex urge the legislature and the executive branch to examine the impact that Chapter 44, that's the state health benefits program, has had on school district budgets and adopt legislation that will reverse any of its negative consequences and provide relief to those districts. And then the last, be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Governor Murphy, State Treasurer Muyo, Senate President Scutari, Assembly Speaker Coughlin, Senator Patrick Dignan Jr., Assemblyman Robert Karabinchik. Missing from this, as written, is Assemblyman Sterling Stanley. He's our second local assemblyman, and the New Jersey School Boards Association. And it'll be signed by the Dr. Nicosia, Linda Hofla, and by our board president, Marilyn. So I urge everyone, of course, to vote for this. And I hope that enough boards adopting this is initiated by the School Boards Association. I hope that enough boards adopting this to put some pressure on the legislature. We won't have to pay 10% more than we expected to budget for this insurance program. And that's my report. Any questions, comments? Okay, I turn it back to you, Marilyn.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Actually, on the health benefits, it's not only us it's going to cost our staff because.
Yes, it'll cost our staff as well. That's in the note.
Their salary comes down based on,
Correct.
they're going to have less take-home money because they're paying more towards their health benefits, which is very unfortunate. Okay, personnel and communication that Anne, you're covering for Chris tonight.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Thanks.
Okay, all yours.
I believe, if I have my dates right, that Chris presented the meeting minutes at our last meeting. We met on July 25th, so I think he presented them at our first August meeting. So I'm just going to go over the agenda real quick. And of course, I lost it. Here we go. Okay, some of this is really self-explanatory. We approve source for teachers every meeting, every voting meeting. The advanced placement test coordinator we heard a little bit about is going to be, so this is like a sidebar, I guess, Mark, or Marilyn, I'm sorry, I'm used to Mark being in charge of negotiations. This is a sidebar with that staff member to create this new position, is that right?
That's with the teaching association, yes, with the association.
Okay, cool. Oh, with the association, I'm sorry. Right, so it'd be added onto the CBA. Okay. Then we have a number of resignations, which we are sorry to hear about. We have our Mandarin teacher is resigning. Let's see, Mr. Kimiak, gym teacher, Ms. Drobenak, special education, Mason Shepherd, school psychologist. Mr. Kimiak also will not be coaching basketball. So we're sorry to hear about those. And I don't know if I'd like to interrupt myself at this point and just ask Dr. Nicosia how we would be handling the Mandarin situation at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
Is it
So, so any staff member that resigns, we do hold them to contract unless we fill the position early. So we will start the year with our current Mandarin teacher.
good? Good.
But her last day, if you note, is September 28th. So we are working very diligently. We did have someone come across my desk. I made an offer, and they declined our offer. So, you know, we're trying our best to get someone in. For us, you know, the worst case scenario is we go back to the former program, which was the combined middle high school, where it was a shared teacher. Ms. Chang used to be a shared teacher, but we were really trying to expand our Mandarin offerings.
Right.
So hopefully we'll be able to fill that position. We do actually have somebody who is interested in teaching the class, but doesn't meet all the criteria for the even emergent certification. So the state adopted some resolution that you could hire some staff, high need staff under like an emergent hire type of situation. This person doesn't qualify, but we're working to maybe see if we can get them in as a sub and figure out how to get them the stuff that they need to be able to do it. So we're trying our best to get someone in there. Worst case scenario is we'd have to, we won't be able to expand our program, and the newly appointed high school Mandarin teacher would have to do middle and high school.
Okay, understood. Thank you. I like those creative solutions. Let's see. And I know I'm sure we're out there looking for special ed teachers too, to replace. We still have an opening or two. Is that right? A vacancy or two? In
Correct.
special education? Okay. Yep. Like schools across the country, I understand.
Yes.
Okay, there's going to be a new special assistant to the football program for alumni affairs, Mr. Arshan. That's great. I assume that will help with sort of fundraising and building alumni spirit, and that sort of thing. Is that what that position will be doing?
It's Norma would like to be on the sidelines during football games.
Oh, that's great. Wonderful. Okay. We have a new family school liaison. It's Mr. Harrison, not new to the position, not new to us. We have a new administrative assistant at the middle school, a new guidance counselor at Irving, a new social worker, a new gym teacher, Mr. Copperthwaite, who I think was a sub for us for a period of time. And there's a read-in on number 13. Let's see. Dr. Nicosia is recommending that we approve Mr. Copperthwaite pending criminal history background check on or before October 24th. I think that means he'll be starting on or before October 24th. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, cool. So on or before October 24th, I believe is a read-in, unless I mistakenly highlighted it here.
You're good.
We have a part-time business office assistant. A lot of this is very self-explanatory, so I'm going to kind of skip over it. Number 17 is the Irving Primary School Ice Cream event staff. Would you mind a quick sentence about what the ice cream event is?
Yeah, so it's an opportunity for parents for Irving to come and they meet meet the staff. And so they
Great.
do ice cream and it's a social event, drop off school supplies, meet each other, learn about the classroom, their fellow students, things like that. Like, so a big social event.
Cool, thank you. Number 18 is our new residency specialist who Mark talked about. 19 is assignments of our paraprofessionals to different buildings. 20 is our translators. Thank you to all of them. Let's see. Oh, it looks like we're only appointing one this time. I think we have other translators already appointed. Let's see. 21, self-explanatory, 22, 23, 24. Teacher leaders. Okay, this is a new program, right? Or maybe it's not. I don't remember actually. I know we've talked about it before, but we have Ms. Claremont at Bartle, Ms. Gappa at Irving, and Ms. Krupski at the middle high school. And these are teachers that are empowered to sort of guide other teachers, right? And present PD. Is that right, Dr. Nicosia?
Correct. Yeah. So we're using some of our Title IIA funds to support new teachers, both first year with their mentor and new staff that come into Highland Park to get informal mentorship from these teacher leaders. Just, understanding Highland Park, the community, and also
I see.
And also instructional support. So there's a combination.
So it's mostly for new teachers. It's for
Yes.
new incoming teachers.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So we really want to try to make sure that they have the right support to feel invested and stay here and have that PD regardless of their certificate status.
Fantastic. Thank you. Let's see, number 25, self-explanatory. 26, here we have a bachelor's degree social work intern for the Community Teen Center, Joshua Gallagher. 27, self-explanatory. 28, 29, 30. Sorry, I'm just looking to see if there's anything that might be confusing. 32, we have a nurse for the Bartle After School program, thankfully. Compensation for classroom moves. Number 34, secretarial overtime. Number 35. I'm not sure if 35 is entirely a read-in.
Yeah, it
But,
is.
It is, okay. So sorry, I wasn't sure how much was a read-in. So number 35, I'm going to read in approval of special education teacher middle school. I move that the board accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve Janet Barron's special education teacher at the middle school, step 15, bachelor's degree, at a salary of $80,578, pending criminal history background check, effective September 1st, 2022. And that is all I have. Thanks, Marilyn.
Thank you. Any questions from anybody on the personnel issues? No, we're good. Okay, then we are at policies. And there's a small list there. Mark, you want to say anything on that or?
I don't, not much anyway. So this for first reading, two came from curriculum. The organizational chart is a new updated organizational chart. And student supervision after dismissal was a policy that was very confusing. And so that was worked on because it was kind of self-contradictory in places and laid out procedures that didn't always work and didn't match what we do in some cases. So that was updated. And then the policies for second reading we talked about last time. And we went over all of these, three of which are mandatory with changes based on legislation. So I can answer some questions about some of these, which I know more about and less about others, but I'm sure there's other people here who can respond if anyone has any questions or comments.
Any questions or comments on the policies? we've all discussed.
It's,
them.
it's wonderful. We're really up to date. I mean, really, really, really up to date now, pretty much all the time. It's fantastic. So thank you, administration, Christina, and committee. It's really great. It's fantastic. Oh, and Susan, who has been doing the work on getting things together. Susan Odato has been just fantastic. So thank you, Susan.
Thank you. Okay, so we are moving to public comment. We have a small public in front of us, but let's see. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. Board policies 0164 and 0167 establish and regulate the right of the public to participate in public meetings. So if any of our public would like to speak, please raise your virtual hand or turn on your camera. I'm happy to hear from you. And if there is none, nobody wants to speak, that's okay too. We're going to go back to voting, board action items, right? So we're going to vote on these items now. So curriculum and instruction, I guess Allison, if you want to move those items.
I'd like to move items 1 through 5.
Second.
Shall I take the roll?
Oh, call, yes, please.
Okay.
Sorry. I zoned out.
Ms. Casaldon,
Yes.
Ms. Simorowski,
Yes.
Ms. Gowan,
Yes.
Mr. Krieger,
Yes,
Ms. Prus,
Yes.
Mr. Roslevich.
Yes.
Okay, and finance and facilities, Mark. can you move those?
I'd like to move items 1 through 19. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Ms. Casaldon,
Yes.
Ms. Simorowski,
Yes.
Ms. Gowan,
Yes.
Mr. Krieger,
Yes,
Ms. Prus,
Yes.
Mr. Roslevich.
Yes.
Okay, and personnel and communication, Ann?
Sorry, little mute problem. Yep, I'd like to move 1 through 35, including new read-ins.
second,
Roll call.
Ms. Casaldon,
Yes.
Ms. Simorowski,
Yes.
Ms. Gowan,
Yes.
Mr. Krieger,
yes,
Ms. Prus,
Yes.
Mr. Roslevich.
Yes.
Okay, and last one is policies and regulations. Mark, you want to move them?
yes, I'd like to move items 1 and 2.
Second.
Thank you.
And roll call for that?
Ms. Casaldon,
Yes.
Ms. Simorowski,
Yes.
Ms. Gowan,
Yes.
Mr. Krieger,
Yes,
Ms. Prus,
Yes.
Mr. Roslevich.
Yes.
Okay, we're on to board liaison reports. Does anybody have any information from any of these committees or groups that you have either met with or know about that you want to share? No? We're going to keep on going. It's summertime. Maybe they didn't want a meeting. I don't have a president's report. Is there anything with old business?
could I bring something up about the board liaison reports, and not for now, but perhaps before the new year or around the new year, when new folks take their seats and we have elect officers, whatever. Perhaps the board in committee or somehow could go through this list, because some of these groups aren't meeting.
Right, agreed. Yeah.
And it's kind of silly. I mean, now for 2 years, most of these groups haven't met. Some are, but there's probably of this long list, there's probably 5 or 6 committees that are meeting, and the rest aren't. So it would be good to maybe whittle it down some.
Good
Yeah,
idea.
that definitely happens over time. We've definitely done that in the past,
Yeah.
different especially with borough stuff, some side stuff is active at some points, and it may be worth like reaching out to Gail and Terry and see if there's anything else that we should be participating in that we're not.
Right.
It's a good idea. Yeah, definitely. Under new business, I think I wanted to bring up something. I don't know if anybody else has. I got back from the School Boards Association, the compilation of the self-evaluation. We actually got 7 out of 9 of us did the self-evaluation for the board, which is great. We have, we certainly have a good number there. So I'm going to share with you, I just got it in the last day or two. What made the most sense to me was these charts that they created that compares results on each of the different topics. And it's overall, things looked really, people on the board felt pretty strongly that our work was matching values, and it was high in all areas. Like I said, I'll send it out. I forgot to do it. The areas where it looked like we could, and I want to use that to work on board goals, like with your help. So where it looked like we all want to be moving is certainly communication with the community, engagement and communication with the community is one that was a relatively lower area. And the other one was planning. And I was sort of struggling. I talked to Mark a little bit as to what that would look like. I wasn't really sure what people meant. So a thought that we had, particularly also to save time here, and not everybody's here tonight anyway, is if each committee this month could take a few minutes at their committee meeting to talk about what you think the planning needs are of either your committee or in general, have that conversation briefly, and then maybe we could pull it back together. The plan, again, I'll show it to you. It was relatively a low area. We haven't done, I know, a long strategic plan in a couple of years for lots of different reasons. I'm not sure that that's what people really want or need, but maybe it is. So I don't know if that sounds reasonable. That's what Mark and I were thinking. I would send out those charts, and before we do board goals to look at least in that area, maybe everybody could chat briefly in their committees as to what they think we need to be doing. Sound like a plan, unless somebody has another suggestion or wants to discuss it? I could easily we could easily have board goals for communication with the community, and to work on that, because that's something definitely has come up. Mark, do you want to comment on that?
Carolyn, I just wanted to say they were relatively lower, but all of the areas were pretty high. And our rep from NJSBA was saying how these are across the board pretty good numbers. Seems like the board does well with each other, but also does well with the community, and with lots of things. So it was very hard for us with that. And the report they sent was terrible. Other than the charts, it made very little sense. So this is a difficult thing. And most boards apparently, even though the NJSBA talks about setting board goals, most boards around the state don't set board goals, and we often haven't. So it's a perhaps difficult and tricky area.
Okay. All right. So I'll put something out to everybody, take a look at it. If you have some input within your committee, send it back. And then in September, we'll definitely have something to talk about and then ultimately vote on for this coming school year. I think it's important to do, just because NJ School Boards Association says so, but also because I think it's helps us to move forward as a group, right? And to maybe address areas that people are feeling like we could do better in. So there's always room for improvement. So that's my thought. If there's nothing else on that, would we go to public comment?
All right, 2 other things for new business.
Oh, go ahead, sure, Rob.
Right, one really quick one for Mark. I think we had a policy that we enacted last year on vaccinations for the staff, which we might need to look at again now that the executive order has come down, as to whether or not that needs to be. I think it had a lot of latitude for Christina to adjust it based on any future executive orders, but whether or not that policy now needs to just be tossed to the wayside. The second thing is a little bit larger. And really what I'm looking for is just some sort of confirmation that within our district right now that we do not actually ban any books. I think we talked about this previously, and I think there's some room to allow parents who have a strong objection to a book to ask that that their child not be presented with that book, or if they find out that it's there, that they can request that they have an alternative book to read. But I just want to confirm that we don't have any active bans in any of our libraries going on right now. Because I feel pretty good about being in New Jersey, knowing that it's not as crazy as some of the other states out there. But I just want to make sure that we're not following any of that craziness.
Dr.
We-
Koch, do you have anything
I
on
would say,
that?
yes, I definitely want to comment. We do not ban any books. We are not following any of that craziness. And you're right, Rob, we still maintain that protocol that we provide options for book selection. So there's alternatives if students or parents want to decline a book that is presented.
Is that something that we should look at codifying as part of our policy, or is that overstepping?
I will look through our current set of policies and see what we have in terms of the curriculum and instruction piece and see what I can dig up.
Okay, thank you.
We did that actually not in relation to books, but in relation to teaching history and honest
History, right.
history. We did pass it as a resolution, not a policy.
Resolution.
But maybe we could look at that in terms of books too, something along those lines, just kind of stating the obvious, but maybe not obvious in the rest of the country. So maybe, maybe something we could consider.
Yeah, so we'll start with policy first, see where we land. If not, we can land with resolution.
Okay.
Thank you.
And to you, the first point, Rob, Christina, I think we may have canceled the policy on some of the early COVID stuff or replaced it.
We
A meeting
did,
with-
but I do know what Rob's talking about, so I'll revisit it just to
Okay.
make sure, because I think the language was around an executive order, and if the executive order wasn't there type of situation, but we can
Right.
definitely look, Strauss isn't as quick with,
Yes,
they seem to be working quick, believe it or not, Trenton's working quicker than Strauss sometimes with this too, so, but I can look at it. If we need to put it on for September abolishment, we can do that as well.
great. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Anything else for new business? Thoughts? No? Then we'll do a second round of public comment in case anybody wants to speak, and that's the Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. So if our members of our public want to speak, measure opportunity. And seeing none, I move that we adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks very much, everybody. You all counted by
night.
being here, gave us a quorum, so,
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
all right. take care.
Bye.